Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and I'm here with the Makers of Minnesota podcast, a podcast about the people in our communities that are entrepreneurs, innovators, and actually making the state of Minnesota great with their ideas and their energy that they bring. If you are listening to this podcast and you've been enjoying it, we're on episode 6. If you could leave an iTunes rating, I would really appreciate it. If you would share the show on your social media sites, that would be helpful too. Always good to get the word out. We are on social media, and you can follow us at Twitter at Makers of MN. We also have a Facebook page, and on our Instagram feed, which is also Makers of MN, we are reintroducing you to some of the makers of Minnesota and sharing some of their content as they are in the field making the state of Minnesota great. So we are on episode 6 today. Episode 5, I'll share with you just a little behind the scenes. I had a great interview with Jennifer Cermak from Nani Nalu. She's got a store at 50th and France in Edina. She makes swimwear, and we talked for about 45 minutes, and I'm really inspired by Jennifer. She's such a great person. And I realized at the end of the interview that I did not hit record. So in the world of broadcasting and podcasting, that is a big fail. So we laughed about it, and I will have her come back in studio so we can spend some more time with her. But Jennifer, thank you for being such a good sport. I went and told my boss, and she was like, well, I bet you won't do that again. So that's kind of how, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, you make stupid mistakes that you only make once or try to make once. A person who has not made many mistakes, as far as I can tell, is CEO and co-founder of the Parasole Group, Phil Roberts, who's my guest today. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Stephanie.
So I said you hadn't made any mistakes, but I'm sure as you're sitting in that chair as an entrepreneur and a maker in this town, you're thinking, oh, I've made plenty.
No, I've made plenty of mistakes. I think the key is you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes.
You know, I think that's probably right. And I went home that day and I was so embarrassed and I felt so bad because I'd really had a great conversation with Jennifer. And I was like, well, all I can do is move forward, right?
Yeah, you'll never do it again.
That's right. I probably won't. So Phil is the founder and CEO of Parasole. Your partner, I want to make sure I mention him, is Peter Mihailov.
That's correct.
Okay. And he's kind of more the silent partner, it seems like, of the duo. And obviously you guys have a huge group of employees that are making this happen at this point. But when you started, how did you guys meet?
Well, we met in college. We were selling shoes together. And
where did you work? Were you local?
University of Illinois in Champaign.
Okay.
And then we each went our separate ways and then happened to run into each other a couple of years later in Minneapolis, where he was working for Pillsbury and I had my own company. And we resumed our friendship. And Pete and I, Pete's involved in a lot of stuff. He's on several boards.
Yep.
He's bright as can be. And he and I complement one another. I don't know a debit from a credit, and Pete knows all about that kind of stuff. So
it's funny that you mentioned that. You're the CEO of Parasole. You guys have right now. I'll give the rundown here. You've got Salute, you've got Burger Jones, you've got Manny's, you've got Chino Latino, you've got Mozzarella Mia, and Mazza Mia. You had Buca, you had Ocean Air, and you spun those off. You had Filio, El Gato. Was it Primo? Was that one yours too?
No, that wasn't ours. We have Pittsburgh Blue.
Okay, Pittsburgh Blue. I forgot about that. And you've got two locations of those. Yes. And I've heard that might be expanding. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, we're looking to do that, yes.
Okay, and your latest venture is Field Day, which is part of the Good Earth. You're going to be opening a fast casual restaurant in Ridgedale.
That's correct.
And then I don't want to forget Muffaletta, because I think that was your first restaurant.
1977.
All right. So you guys meet up and you decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and start a restaurant chain. I mean,
not a chain, not a chain. Just we were both foodies. Pete was traveling to the West Coast a lot on business. I was traveling to the East Coast. In my travels, my clients in New York took pity on me because I was a kid from flyover country. and all about meat and potatoes and not much else, and pretty good meat and potatoes, do my roast beef well done, and make my mashed potatoes. With
And a
no
little
lumps.
gravy?
Yeah, gravy, yes, no lumps in the gravy, and all of that. And good Lord, my clients took pity on me in New York and were taking me to all the hottest, newest restaurants in New York. And I'd come home, and my God, I had just had quiche Lorraine, or I had just had spaghetti with white sauce.
Right.
And Pete was coming back with similar ideas, and we'd get together on weekends and cook and try to outdo each other on what we made. And this little restaurant in St. Louis Park, or in St. Anthony Park, became available, and we just decided to buy it one day.
And when you bought it, because you were a marketing guy.
No, Pete was the marketing.
Pete was the marketing guy. And what role would you say was yours?
Creative guy.
Okay, so just you had the idea of what the food would look like or feel like?
Well, I'd recently, what I wanted to do, and what Pete wanted to do as well, was bring some of the experience that we'd been seeing on both coasts, because, trends happen there first.
Sure.
And bring some of that stuff to the Twin Cities, because the Twin Cities was pretty much a culinary wasteland. I mean, they had Charlie's and Harry's and some of those places that were good.
Some really good, yeah.
But they were all of a kind pretty much, and there was not much adventure, not much wit, not much inventiveness. And we thought, well, this could be a nice place to test some of our ideas that we've seen, that we have found popular. And that was the idea of opening Muffaletta.
When you started it, did you literally work in the business every day, or was it?
Yeah, I worked in the business every day. Pete was still at Pillsbury. I was in the business every day, but I'm not an operator.
It's what kind of astounds me about you, to be honest, is I started a printing and direct mail company with my husband, and we had no direct mail experience. You started a restaurant company, and you were, of the two of you, you were the eater. Yeah. You were the creative energy. You were the guy who would go out, and he was the eater and would bring these ideas back and try to cultivate them, but you didn't have restaurant experience.
None.
You weren't an operator, and still to this day don't see yourself as an operator.
No, I'm not. I've got, I always hire people smarter than me and much smarter than me. And that's the way our company has been built. I like to eat, and that's why I did the restaurant. I didn't realize that occasionally if the dishwasher didn't show up, I'd be mopping the dish in the morning.
Yeah.
So I've done that, been there, done that, don't like it. And so I've just made it a point to, bring in really almost people so smart they're almost freaks of nature.
Yeah.
They're really, really good at what they do.
And Muffaletta is still going strong. It's a neighborhood restaurant. It does a great job. Yeah. It seems like it's reinvented itself a number of times just in terms of staying fresh and up to date.
Yep.
Great happy hour, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Which of the restaurants that you operate now are you proudest of?
Oh, God. I do get asked that. Or which one do you like to eat at most?
Is there one that, they're all good to eat at? Let's just say that.
It depends on your frame of mind and your mood that day. Now, I'm going to have a busy day today, and I'm going to go home from work at 6:00 tonight. And I'm not, even though Manny's is one of my all-time world-class favorites.
Yep.
I'm not going to want to take the effort to drive downtown Minneapolis tonight and go to Manny's. I'll probably run over to Matsumi or go next door to Salute and have a hamburger or something. I can
that good onion soup burger.
Well, yes, you can do that. The French onion soup burger. People are motivated by their moods and what kind of a day they have and what kind of a frame of mind they're in and how ambitious they want to be. Stephanie, I was in Honolulu at a conference. I was speaking at a conference in Honolulu when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
And we were stuck.
Yep.
We were stuck. And it wasn't as if you go down to the Hertz office and rent a car and drive home, and no airlines were flying or anything else. We finally got out about 5 or 6 days later, and I said to Joanne on the flight, I said, when we get home tonight, I said, I just want to go down to Manny's, and I want to sit in the bar, and I want to get in the booth, and I want to hide. And she says, well, do you really want steak tonight? And I said, it's not about the steak. I want to go someplace where I can cocoon, where I can feel safe, where it's familiar, cozy. That was my motivation. It had nothing to do with the steak. So a lot of it depends on where your brain is and where your emotions are and where you want to go.
And listening to you describe that experience is, I think, what makes you so successful at what you do, because it's about the food, of course. Mm-hmm. And if the food isn't good, then it's just not good. Yep. But there is something about the experience and the way that you make people feel, from the front of the house to the decor to the music. All of those things add up together to make a good experience. And you seem to do that so seamlessly.
Well, Pete has an expression. All restaurateurs right now are facing really, really strong headwinds.
Yep.
It's government action. It's $15 an hour minimum wage. It's no tip credit. It's
medical.
Yep. It's just rising food costs. It's really, and what restaurants do, they've got 3 lousy choices in that kind of an environment. You can raise prices.
Yep.
You can cut portions, or you can cut quality. And those are 3 lousy choices. We have elected to, as minimally as we can, raise prices and not screw up the experience.
Right.
We aren't going to suddenly take a 8-ounce filet and turn it into a 6-ounce filet and charge the same price.
Right.
We aren't going to do it. We'd rather raise the price by $1 and have the experience be there. We aren't going to suddenly give servers 8 table stations when they should have 5 to save 2 servers.
Yep.
Right, and then we aren't going to cut staff in the kitchen so the ticket times, instead of being 15 minutes, they're 30 minutes.
Yep.
We just aren't going to do it because people, and that's maybe unique to the segment we're in. We aren't in the fast food or really in the fast casual business. We're in that polished end of casual.
Yep.
So people's expectations are generally rather high when they come into one of our places, and you can't disappoint them.
Yeah.
So, just make it right.
Well, and let's talk about, so Good Earth comes on board in this, it was your second restaurant, right?
Well, we merged with another little company that had the licensing rights to Good Earth.
Okay.
It started in California. A fellow by the name of Bill Galt. He was a nuts and berries hippie guy, but brilliant. He was also a chemist and nutritionist.
Sure.
Really brilliant. And we merged with the company, and we inherited then the Good Earth in the mid-'80s. And the 2 partners have since left, and Pete and I have the...
Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here. Check out my brand new podcast, 2 Week Notice, where we discuss the process of quitting your job and living a more fulfilling life. I want you living the dream. Find 2 Week Notice on my website, jaredsebesta.com, or subscribe on iTunes today.
Good Earth is so interesting to me because you talk about natural wholesomeness, unprocessed. Correct. I feel like you were kind of the pioneers in that in the Twin Cities.
Maybe in the nation.
Okay. And so now you're taking that to the next level, which is doing a fast casual concept with it. Correct. It's going to be called Field Day. It's going to open in Ridgedale in the fall, and it's going to be a spinoff that I would assume, if it goes well, you'd like to replicate.
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, the mission one is to make that one successful. Because if it isn't successful, you'll never build it.
Right.
So, but yes, it has all the DNA of something that could roll out and become several stores.
And to be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised that you haven't really done a fast casual up until this point.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that now felt like the right time to do that?
Well, I think that people's dining habits have somewhat changed. Millennials in particular. Millennials are coming on board. And there's several things that they want. They do want speed.
Yep.
They don't have the brand loyalty that people my age have. They want it to be wholesome and natural and real.
And they want to know what's in it.
They want to know what's in it. I mean, today's, you walk through Lund's or Byerly's, moms read labels.
Yeah.
Moms read labels.
And that's a real shift in the last 10 years.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. Yeah. My daughter has 2 children, or 3, actually 3, and she won't take them any place other than the Good Earth.
Yeah.
Because she's not going to put anything in their little tummies that's not as pure as the wind-driven snow.
Yeah. And that's super different. I mean, because we ate Swanson's turkey dinners.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. I grew up on Wonder bread ladled with bacon grease. And
yep. And it was delicious at the time.
It was.
All right. So if we look at the trajectory of your career here, people look at Parasole, I think, locally, and I compared you in my own growing up food life to like the Lettuce Entertain News.
Oh, yeah, Melman.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is like our own little version of that. Not so little. You did chains that you spun off and had a lot of success with, like the Bucas of the world and the Oceanaires of the world. Are you always, when you develop a restaurant, thinking about where to take it next, or do you really start with just that one and like, let's see how it goes?
You really start with the one. I can't help to have it always in the back of my brain.
Yep.
That if Burger Jones just really hits it out of the park, that, boy, we ought to do another and another.
Yeah.
But it's not top of mind. What's top of mind is making the initial one successful, because I can get a little bored doing cookie cutter concepts. The first Buca was fantastic. It was really, really fun.
It was over at Harmon Place, right?
Still
My office is right across the street.
Yeah, so, in lines outside, 50 people outside in February at 10 below zero and waiting in line. And it was really a blast. And the second one was a blast. And the third one was really fun. And the fourth one was good. And the fifth one was a little boring.
Mm-hmm.
And by the 10th and 15th, I was bored stiff. I just can't be a one-trick pony.
Yep.
So I like the variety of doing different ones.
And when you think about, I heard a story once about Chino that you had taken, and I think you do this a lot, you take your management team on trips.
Oh, yes.
And that the way that Chino kind of came together was that you literally took them on trips to hot zones around the world to eat.
Yeah, and what happened was my wife and I were in Bangkok. And if you've ever been to Bangkok, you know how dreadfully hot and humid it can be, 110 degrees and dew point of 80 or something.
Right.
And what we discovered was when the sun went down at night, people just crawled out of the woodwork. I don't know where they came from. And all along the streets were these hundreds and hundreds of street vendors.
Yep.
They were selling everything from chicken wings to chicken feet to octopus to cotton candy to Slurpees to just name it.
Sure.
And I said to my wife, I said, my God, I think this could work in Minneapolis. And she says, oh, Phil, she says, that goes against everything you've ever said. And I said, what have I ever said? And she said, you've always said that there's too much Lutheran DNA in Minnesota to do anything adventuresome. And I said, no. I said, the reason is the magic of it is it's small plates. It's little plates, $2, $3, $4, something like that. So if you try octopus and you don't like it, no harm, no foul.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the genesis of Chino, and I wrote the menu on the plane on the way back, got back, and read that the incidence of dining out on Asian food is like once every 7 weeks, but the incidence of dining out on Mexican food is like once every 3.5 weeks. I thought, well, how can I throw those two culinary cultures together? And that's where it became Chino Latino. The other name we had, by the way, was Mi Casa Sumatra, which was also a good name.
That is a good name.
Yeah. But Tim Alavisos from Supervox Agency, who we work with on all of our marketing and our advertising forever, came up with the names, and we dubbed it Street Food from the Hot Zone. And then what I did before we opened the restaurant, I sent a team of about 5 people to Bangkok, to Hong Kong, to Mexico, Singapore.
Phuket, was it?
Pardon me?
Did they go to Phuket? I thought I had heard that you'd gone to Thailand too.
Yes, they did go to. Yes, they went to Bangkok.
Oh, Bangkok.
They went
sorry.
down to Phuket. Yes, they did. And then they came back and refined what I had put together as kind of a skeletal draft of a menu, and they refined that, and we opened it in 1999.
And one of the things you have on the menu there that just sticks out is the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And it's not bad.
Tastes like chicken.
It does taste like chicken, but it's so weird because it's just like when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, who has the balls in this town to serve a guinea pig?
Yeah. Well, it's a national dish, maybe kind of like turkey at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it really is.
In Ecuador and some of those places. And I think the guys bring their girlfriends in to impress them.
Yep.
And they order the rat.
Oh gosh, it does look like a skinned rat too.
Yeah,
you have this nice poo-poo platter presentation, but when you get down to it, it looks like a skinned rat.
You see their little feet and the claws and stuff.
Yep. It's a little funny. I'm not going to lie. So I've often thought that Chino Latino actually could be a good fast casual concept as we're getting more into the ethnic foods.
Yeah, it could, and we have talked about that. Chino, and we may do a fast casual Chino. But right now, Chino is viewed upon as kind of a rite of passage for young women. I always think about, Chino's naughty.
Yep.
And I think about little Muffy that lives out in Minnetonka or Wayzata or whatever. Little Muffy's mom doesn't want her to go to Chino Latino.
Right. And coming into the heart of Uptown.
Right.
And
that makes Muffy want to go there all the more.
Well, and you've always done that. You've always gotten people like from the western suburbs that frankly never go anywhere.
Correct.
That's not near their place.
Correct.
You've gotten them to come into downtown. You've gotten them to come into Uptown. Mm-hmm. You must consciously think about that in the way you just described it.
Well, you look for holes in the market. You look for opportunities. It didn't take any sense of brilliance to open Buca, for example.
Right.
When I did Buca in the mid-1990s, I observed that at the end of World War II, there were 25 million Southern Italians that immigrated to this country. Uneducated, dirt poor, a wretched life in southern Italy, was war-ravaged and everything else.
Yeah.
And these people weren't educated and all this. But 25 million came to America, and they opened mom-and-pop restaurants. That was what they could do. They were good cooks. And in the mid-1990s, mom-and-pop were getting old. Mom-and-pop were dying.
That's smart, yeah.
The kids wanted .com. They wanted nothing to do with the restaurant business. So all these beloved institutions in all the little Italies all over the nation were just closing their doors. You remember Cafe di Napoli?
I do.
Chios? I mean, all these people were just shutting.
Donatelli's.
Yeah, Donatelli's, yes. And so, and the Italian restaurants that were opening were all kind of sleek and slick and beveled glass and marble and glass and, kind of for the Armani crowd with the sweaters tied around the neck and the glasses on top of the head and the women, blowing air kisses all over, as they come in the place. And I wanted to differentiate myself from that and kind of revive these old world beloved restaurants. And I remember I termed it, I want a restaurant that is sleeves up dining.
Yeah.
Or maybe better, sleeves up eating.
And bibs.
And bibs, yeah. So it didn't take a bunch of creative juice to come up with that. It was just observing what was going on. Same thing with Ocean Air. Minneapolis had, what's the one over in St. Anthony, that hotel that was there, I can't remember the name of it. That was kind of the better one. And Red Lobster. There was nothing.
Right.
There was no deal. There was, Manny's is a deal closing place. I mean, when you go public or you sell your company, you celebrate at Manny's. There was no seafood alternative to that. And the Twin Cities was void of decent seafood restaurants.
And you did Ocean Air that has since been sold to Landry's, correct?
Landry's, yeah.
When you sell a restaurant, so you sell it to Landry's, which makes total sense because they have seafood restaurants all over the country. Does that make you feel like, obviously your pocketbook is happy, but is there a certain amount of sadness?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because they are your babies.
Yeah.
You remember the day that you labored over, how to present that piece of fish. Is it 6 ounces? Is it 7? Is it 8? Does the sauce go on the bottom? Sauce go on the top? I mean, you think about all these things that went through your mind at the time, and it is a little bit.
You do have the best crab cake ever. I feel like you for sure were in Baltimore eating crab cakes.
It was. Well, I was at Fadley's, and Fadley's in Baltimore in the market, and Fadley's is the one that sent the crab cake to the moon. And that's the one.
I lived there, so
Fadley's then.
And when I had that crab cake at Ocean Air, when it was yours, I was like, okay, this is that same crab cake.
It is, yeah. I mean, there's no substitute for 100% crab.
One of the things that I think comes through in your restaurants and your food is a couple things. One, they're very fun. You seem like you're kind of a funny, lighthearted guy. Are you? Or is that just what you like to present?
We aren't curing cancer.
No, you're not.
We're not. We're providing a setting where people can go forget the crap that went on in their day, or they can become engaged. They can announce that they're getting divorced.
Yep.
It's just a venue where people can go and a lot of our restaurants don't have windows, and that's one of the reasons that they don't have, is that we want them in our environment to be in a different world. We want to transport people someplace.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you think about the marketing that you've done for these restaurants. I worked at City Pages at the time, or it was Twin Cities Reader, one of the publications. We wrote an article about the Chino Latino billboards, and they were very controversial. When you do marketing like that, you said you've worked with the same company for a very long time. You must know, like, oh, this is going to poke the Lutherans in the eye and it's going to be controversial.
Well, that's the point. Because we can't outspend, I get up in the morning and I turn on the TV and Red Lobster is having its Shrimp Fest or Crab Fest it is right now. And, the butter is bouncing off the plate. And, it's just, and they're spreading that cost of that TV spot over 15, 20 stores in the Twin Cities. I can't do that. I've got to have one store take all the burden
and be super impactful.
Yeah, so you have to break through. Your message has to trump the amount of coverage that you're getting.
Is that harder to do than it used to be in the days of social media and how fast the culture's moving?
I don't know that it's any harder. We use a lot of social media as well. We don't use as much paid media as we used to. But
do you do social media yourself? Like, do you follow? Do you have a Twitter account?
I have a blog.
Okay.
Hey, you should look.
I know about your blog. It's called Wine, Travel, and Food.
WTF.
WTF. I thought that was a brilliant name. I have to be honest with you.
That came from Tim Alavisos at Superbox.
Okay, good. Because I was sitting there thinking, I never have good ideas. Why does he have all the good ideas?
I have the right person to interpret what it is.
And is your blog for Twin Cities Business? Is that
I don't know. I've got one breaking today. That's no, I don't think it's necessarily for business. It's maybe more of a chronicle of my life.
And there's a lot of travel in it.
There's a lot of travel in it. And I say today's blog is breaking, and it's on breast chickens. Well, 99% of the people aren't going to know what a breast chicken is, but I tell them.
What is a breast chicken?
A breast chicken is from a specific area in France, a little bit south of Burgundy, north of Lyon.
Okay.
Right in there. It's a designated area by the government, just like wine.
Yeah.
Wine is. It's a chicken that is fed a certain way. It is a red, white, and blue chicken. It has a red comb, white feathers, and blue feet. So it emulates the French flag.
Yep.
There are only a few produced. They are not produced in the United States.
Okay.
There is a Bluefoot chicken that is raised in California, but it's not quite the same. And so it's a very limited thing. Those folks that might be traveling to France this summer. The euro's favorable and all that.
I would have sought it out.
And I name in this blog. I name 3 restaurants to go to.
I saw that.
Yeah, and they're all different. But
where were you when I was going to France earlier in the summer? I was
in France earlier in the summer.
Oh, God,
June 3rd to the 23rd or 4th.
I always want to reach out to people like you or Andrew Zimmern. I travel a lot as well, not as much as you, but a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've never had awesome French food in France. I've had, culturally significant. I've had traditional. I've been to the classic bistros. Mm-hmm. And I am always so surprised that for a country that has such phenomenal food, that it's hard to get it. It's hard to find it.
Well, and I'm not a big fan of 4-star Michelin restaurants. I like. I
don't really like dining like that either. It's special occasion to me.
Long. Yeah, it's just too long and too precious.
Too long is a good way to describe it.
It is. Your butt gets sore. have to keep going. But France, France is pretty much a slave to their cuisine. There's rules and regulations that were started by Paul Bocuse and Escoffier and all this kind of stuff. And so they may not vary that much from one to another, where London in the past 15 years has just exploded.
Yes, it has.
And the variety. I prefer London as a dining capital than I do Paris.
Yep.
Paris ain't bad. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Paris ain't bad. And if you go, give me a call.
I will. I'll check in with you next time.
Yeah.
You travel a ton, and traveling seems to inform what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily in the prime of your career. It's a nice way of saying you're getting older. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like, oh, gee, I should stop doing this, or I should move on to the next thing? Or do you just think this is what you do and you'll just keep doing it till you can't anymore?
This is what I do. This is my golf. No, I don't know what else I would do.
And you still genuinely seem to love it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I come when I come back from Europe, and you're going through immigration and customs.
Yep.
The place where you present your passport. I always get confused. They say, "Was this business or pleasure?"
I never thought about that.
And I'm thinking, I took over 1,000 photos. I learned just a bundle of shitload of stuff.
Yep.
And but yet I was drinking a lot of wine.
Yeah.
And having a good. What is it? Is that work or is that? I cannot draw the distinction between work and pleasure. I can hardly wait to get to work in the morning.
So you take your 1,000 pictures. Do you then bring them back to the people that you work with and say, look at these, or do you look back on them
read my pre-log before last? It was on. I have a database that I put those images in, and I have 70,000 culinary images in there, and you can slice and dice it in keyword. For example, if I see a bread presentation at a place,
yep.
Take a picture. Before, when Brown Photo was still around, I'd come back and I'd have the picture and I'd put it in an album.
Yep.
And I'd say bread. Then I'd have to have another picture made and I would say New York. Then I'd have another picture made and it would have to say Palm Restaurant.
Okay.
And then I'd have another one said that pretzel bread.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I had all these unwieldy volumes of stuff. Well, with
downsizing and computers and
all that, I can now take that one picture and I can just list all those words and I can hit the palm and up comes that bread presentation. I can hit bread basket, up comes the presentation, and I can sit with my chefs and say if they're thinking about a new bread presentation for Pittsburgh Blue or something.
Yeah.
Say, well, this is what so and so does in Los Angeles. Now take a look at this. This is what La Couronne does in Paris.
Can you remember all that?
Yeah.
So you have a good memory for what you've seen and.
Yes.
Yeah, because I would think after 70,000 images, it'd be hard to.
I think I know every image in that.
Have you? So now is it all categorized electronically? And do you
electronically? It's just because you can slice and dice any number of ways. You can put any word on it, and it'll come up. If I'm not sure if it was Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, I can punch Pittsburgh, and if that's the right one, it'll come up. If it doesn't come up on that, I'll punch Philadelphia, and bang, there it is.
Neat.
Yeah.
As you look at your picture of 70,000 pictures, is there a concept that you want to try that you haven't yet that's rumbling around in your brain?
Well, I've been pretty focused on field day.
Yep.
Right now.
And are you I'm asking like a million questions, but
okay.
When you're looking at field day, for example, are you going through this Rolodex in your head of 70,000 pictures and thinking ingredient wise how you can replicate them?
Well, I do. And I have a category in my database called fast casual.
Okay.
And I probably have 1,500 images of fast casual restaurants around the world. I have a category called nutrition. And I probably have 800 or 900 images of nutrition. But then we have also really, I said I always surround myself with people smarter than I am. Tim McKee, who you probably know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him in a bit.
I mean, you have to, he's got a zillion ideas in his head. And then Donna Foz, who's our chief operating officer.
Yep.
So between Tim and myself and Donna, we're able to fashion and mold a menu that's going to have appetite appeal that people are going to understand, that's going to be good for you, that's going to be natural, it's going to have all the ingredients that people are wanting to eat today that are good for you.
What's weird about, so when you travel in Europe, for instance, you're only able to eat what is grown there, what is there for the most part. There isn't the same grocery store mentality and packaged good mentality. Right. So you get exposed to a lot of ingredients that maybe you wouldn't normally cook with because that's what's there in that time. Like I'm thinking of, I was in Campania and I'm just thinking of the vegetables there. Mm-hmm. And we've traveled and been on islands in Italy where, all you have is the goat in the back and whatever they're growing in the back of the restaurant. Do you like that European style of dining better than the array of choices in the United States?
Well, I like to be respectful of the region that I'm in and the season that we're in. You're not going to do strawberries in January, and so it's important that, just take Italy for an example. And I spent a lot of time both northern Italy and southern Italy and Sicily. Well, the south of Italy is poor.
Yep.
They don't eat a whole lot of meat. On their pasta, instead of Parmigiano Reggiano being grated over it, it's breadcrumbs.
Yep.
That's substitutes for Parmigiano Reggiano. It's normal cows can't live in the south of Italy because it's too hot. So they imported water buffalo from India, and that's where they get the buffalo mozzarella. So you try to be really respectful of all that sort of thing and eat what is there. Now, I'm not a big thing on eating really weird, except on occasion. And
you and Andrew Zimmern aren't going to hang out and eat.
No, I'm not going to eat the bugs. And,
bugs
God bless him. I don't know how he does it, but he's a wonderful guy.
He is,
and I love him to death. But I try to stay pretty much in things that might be relevant to what we do. I was in. I went to this restaurant in Paris called Le Coq Rico, which specializes in breast chickens. Well, one of their appetizers was a real snout-to-tail kind of a thing, and it was an appetizer of chicken hearts, duck hearts, chicken liver, calamari, and I forget what else. And
how all that came together has got to be unique.
It's I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And my 10-year-old grandson ordered it and ate it. Now that's not going to be relevant. Nobody is ever going to eat a duck heart at Salute or Muffaletta or any place. So that's kind of outside of the realm. But I am a fan of Fergus Henderson in London, who does the whole thing with the St. John and the snout to tail stuff. And
April Blumenfeld, probably.
April Blumenfeld,
New York based.
Yep. And her too. And Mario Batali. I think he's a showman, but he's good.
Yeah, he is a good chef.
Yeah, and so I try to do things that have some sort of a relevance to what we do. Occasionally, I get out of that box.
Yep.
Just got to try something else.
Are you at all interested in the sort of cocktail culture, the breweries, the wineries, that whole side of the business that's sort of come up?
Not so much. No, we have important folks in our organization.
Of course.
That are. They're very, very.
You have some great cocktails at Chino, and we're one of the first people I can recall that were doing really craft cocktails there.
Correct. No, and the same at Prohibition and the same at the Living Room down. I'm very respectful of that. I'm not a cocktail
guy. Do you drink wine?
Yes.
And love wine?
I love wine. I'm not. I'm not an expert by any means on it. I drink at home. I drink cheap.
Yeah, that's funny. What's your cheap go-to wine that you buy when you...
$3 Chuck.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me.
Why?
I don't know. You just seem like you'd be not drinking $3 Chuck.
Oh, but if I'm at a nice restaurant, I might drink a bottle of Kistler.
Yeah. It's just... But so what I always... I have a little secret wine shame, to be honest with you. Sertic is a good friend of this radio station, a good friend of mine, and we'll go out and we'll have wine. And, I always tell him, I really can't tell the difference between an $80 bottle of wine and an $8 bottle of wine most times.
That's where I suppose if I drank them side by side.
Yeah.
We would.
And you did a tasting
and tasting and all that. But, it's kind of like pizza. The worst I ever had was great.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I feel that way too. Like some of this, they call it the Minnesota flat pizza.
Yeah.
And people are just like, oh, it's so terrible. I'm like, oh, I still like it if it's got a thick robe of cheese when I cut it and it's in a square and it's perhaps red Savoy.
I'm pulled out of the refrigerator.
That's exactly right.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So talking food trends, is there a reason you've never done a food truck? Is that in your wheelhouse?
No, that just doesn't interest me because I don't see really. I don't think it's a good cultural fit with our company.
I don't see how you could control the experience in the way that you want to.
You can't, and so that's another reason we passed on the Viking Stadium. That's another reason we passed on the airport.
Yep.
Is because you don't have your people during, the Viking Stadium wanted Manny's in the worst way.
Yep.
I mean, really in the worst way, and I understand that. But they wouldn't be our employees.
That's why Surdix, everybody asks about, like, why is Surdix, they're leaving Terminal 1 at the airport. They were sort of pushed out, actually, if we're being candid.
Yep.
And everybody wants to know why. Well, for them to have their employees staff it and service it and be able to talk to customers about that food and that experience, it wasn't going to be allowed anymore.
Nope.
They had kind of a grandfather thing that people were phasing out, and that's not your restaurant then. That's not your concept.
It isn't, and they sold wine by the bottle in that venue at the airport. And, you don't want some 22-year-old kid who knows nothing about wine recommending you want to control the experience. Yeah, so that's the reason that we passed on those.
When you eat locally, and you don't eat at your own restaurants, where do you like?
I don't go other place other than my own restaurants.
Really? When you're in town, you only eat at your own places? Wow, that surprises me too.
Well, there's a reason for it. I mean, first of all, when you employ a bunch, particularly servers, waiters and waitresses, and you employ a bunch of them, and that's not really their career. They graduated with a degree in art history, and this is what they're doing because they can't find a job someplace else, and they're with you for 1, 2, 3 years, and then they move on to another restaurant, and they move on to another restaurant. When my wife and I, if we go into a restaurant, name anyone, it wouldn't make much difference. Chances are one of their employees has been with us at one time or another. Well, suddenly they're at my table. Suddenly the manager is over with a bottle of wine. Suddenly the evening isn't mine anymore. My wife and I just maybe want to have that little talk.
Yep.
And it's intrusive.
Yeah.
So I confine my dining to out of town.
And so you just eat at home locally or in your own restaurants. In your own restaurants, will people respect that and kind of leave you alone?
Oh, they know to do that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not rude or
a jerk, sure.
But they understand, and it's important that I go to our own restaurants.
Yeah, and check them out.
To check them out. When I order a salad, I look to see if any of the lettuce is brown.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's on a cold plate and not on a hot plate. And I take notes and I talk to the...
And that's not a great relaxing experience for you and your wife either, probably.
It's not. I mean, you're keenly aware.
Yeah.
And you're looking at other tables. Is that, that table... I was at Salute the other night, and this table of 3 people were served 4 loaves of bread. I'm thinking, well, what a waste.
Yeah.
It's because it goes in the wastebasket.
Yep.
So you just look at that kind of stuff.
Between you and Tim McKee, because I feel that way with Tim McKee too, like he has employed basically everyone through his career too, and he's such a generous spirit, and he's helped so many people in their careers.
He has. He has mentored so many people, and he is such a nice person.
He is a nice person.
He's really a sweet guy. Now Tim goes out. He goes out to places in the Twin Cities. He does it a lot, and that doesn't bother him. But me, I'd just soon get my inspiration from London or New York.
When he first came to work with you, I'll be honest, I was sort of like, in my mind, and I never said this to him, but I really was a fan of La Belle Vie, and I have some family history. They helped start that restaurant. They lived in the 510 there, and we're on the co-op, and I thought, is Tim selling out, and he's going corporate. When I spend actual time with you, and certainly I've spent time with Tim since. It makes total sense that he's working with you.
It does. Yeah, no, he is such a joy to work with. He's the smartest culinarian I've ever been around in my life.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
And oddly enough, before he became a culinarian, he was working for me at Filio back in the day.
Yep.
As a line cook.
God, I miss Filio.
Yeah, I know. That was the dumbest thing I ever did.
Could you just retry? I mean, would it never just be the same? Is that like
it'd be the same? And one of the stupidest things I've ever said was the old Dr. Seuss line that says, "Don't be sad that it's over. Be glad that it happened." And I try to use that salve my soul.
Yeah, because that really was, and I could see that concept still being strong today.
It would be
the way it reinvented itself.
But see, that's the danger. That's the danger of having a short attention span. And
would you say you have a short attention span and you struggle with that?
Yes. Oh God. Yes.
I can imagine.
Yeah. No, but Filio had a run of 25 years. The rent was going up substantially.
Yep.
And I just had the itch to try something else. And as it turns out, that was really dumb.
Yeah. And good for you for recognizing it and then moving on. You know, everybody, I didn't hit record on the last podcast as we started out. It happens. So as we think about what's next, you're going to explore this fast casual. And frankly, I can see that being interesting for you. What do you read magazines about food, or just really get most of informed from your travel experience?
You're getting into the very pathetic nature of my life. I subscribe to, I think it's 72 or 76 food-related, city-related publications. I subscribe to Miami Magazine, Los Angeles Magazine, Vegas, New York, New Yorker, Atlanta, Philadelphia,
Wow.
Chicago, Kansas City. I subscribe to several from South Africa and South America.
Yeah.
And I will go home tonight, and I will have a stack of probably 8 or 10 publications.
Yep.
Okay? And this gets to my pathetic existence. I'll sit in my chair, and I'll probably turn on Pawn Stars, and I take the magazines one by
Chumley.
one. Chumley. Isn't he funny?
He is funny.
And I go through it, and I see this idea. I say, oh, that's kind of cool. Now, it could be a dish.
Yep.
It could be a storefront. It could be a uniform. It could be an article. It could be whatever. Go into work the next day. My wife, who works alongside me, takes a stack of probably 30 or 40 images, scans them into the database.
Yep.
Keywords them. And I've got this chronicle then of everything and tomorrow night will be the same thing. I'll have another. So I'm able to see what's going on all over the world, culinarily. And they say not just recipes, not just plating, not just...
But like colors and trends. And
you see the yin and the yang in the dishes. And
yep.
You think, oh, my God, this would work for Pittsburgh Blue, or this would work for Muffaletta, or this
yep.
would work for Manny's, or, whatever. But that is my life at home, is watching Pawn Stars and going through movies.
Better Pawn Stars than porn stars.
Pork Stars.
Maybe that's the next restaurant. The Pork Stars is the nose to tail restaurant, and you make every piece of the pork a star. Right. See, we just concepted a restaurant right there. I do that too, but I don't have the database going, so I just have scraps of annoying pieces of paper everywhere until the stack is so bad and so unorganized that I literally just throw it away, because I figure if I haven't gone back to the stack, I'll just create the next stack. Yeah. Do you ever look at Lucky Peach? That's just a magazine I think is phenomenal.
I get Lucky Peach. David Chang.
Yeah,
I get that.
That is such a...
I like his restaurants in New York.
And it's very just beautifully put together, and it feels kind of edgy and trendy, and
Yeah, Lucky Peach is one of the ones.
When I'm going to splurge. I miss having like a bookstore. I miss having a place where you can go and get all these different types of magazines.
Yeah.
Because the mainstream food magazines, they're great, but they are what they are.
Some are going out of business, too.
I know. What are we going to do about that? And could you get that same textural feel? There's an app now, I think it's called Texture, where you can get, all these magazines in the app for $9.99 a month.
I'm not aware of that. No, I don't know if I would or not. I don't read newspapers online. I'd like to have.
It's I know, and I think is this just our generation because we're getting old that we can't have that tactile experience? But it is different to have a book or a Kindle.
It's different because and probably since you're in the business, you look at things much the same way I do. When I pick up a magazine and I'm thumbing through it and I look at the photograph, I'm aware of the quality of paper that has been printed on.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that.
Because a lot of publications are going to cheaper paper, and it absorbs the ink, and they get flat, and they don't get a lot. They aren't vibrant.
Same with the newspaper business, and the newspaper curls, and it's just kind of a weird experience.
That's right.
Yeah, printing has changed a lot, but there's also a lot of cool substrates and things that they're using too.
Correct.
All right, so you're watching Pawn Stars, you're flipping through your magazines. when you look at the Twin Cities just as a business community, because you mentioned that things have changed so much, when you travel, do you still like get to the MSP airport and you're happy to be home, or do you ever think about leaving here and moving somewhere else?
No, I won't live someplace else. Minneapolis and Minnesota has a lot of things that are terribly anti-business.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people at the State House or City Hall, they'd never even run a lemonade stand. They've never had to meet a payroll. They don't understand.
Yep.
When they legislate all these things, and they wonder why Barella closed. They wonder why Sena closed. They wonder why La Belle Vie closes. Pretty soon you can't charge $30 for a hamburger.
That's right.
And absorb all these costs. So politically, the Twin Cities is as bad as Seattle or California or Oregon or some of that stuff with the governmental regulations. Having said that, I like living here. My daughter lives here with her kids, and so I wouldn't do that. And then the fact that Joanna and I are so blessed. I mean, we can travel. I mean, we spend a good share of the wintertime in warm climates.
Yep.
I'm not going to go to Reykjavik in February.
Have you been to Croatia by any chance?
I have not, but my partner Pete, he's Serbian. He's been over there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I've gone there 3 times in the last
really?
5 years.
Are you Croatian?
No, but I went there sailing one time.
Cool.
And I just sort of fell in love with it. I sailed the Italian islands, and then we did the Croatian islands, and there's just the food is somewhat similar to Italy, strangely, but down in the south, you're eating from the coast. Right. I would highly recommend it for you. It's just really, and the people are beautiful people, just lovely.
Yeah, no, that could be on my bucket list.
How about Budapest? Have you been there? I'm going there.
Yeah, I have, and
that's my next trip.
You know what's funny about Budapest? We were there a number of years ago, just after they started to become westernized. And we'd go to the restaurants, and you'd go in, and the tabletops would be beautiful with the starch white linen, and then they'd have the napkin folds that were, this high, twisted.
Yeah, like a cone.
Yeah, like a cone, yeah. And the candles, flowers, all of that. And you would order your food, and the entree would come, let's say it was veal or something. But then it would come with canned peas. They just didn't quite get it.
Yep.
And not mushy peas like London, but just Hunt's canned peas.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure they've caught on now.
Well, I am really pleased to spend time with you today, and I have enjoyed talking with you very much. Thank you for coming and being a part of the show. I really look forward to what's next for you. I'm excited about Field Day by the Good Earth, and it will be in Ridgedale Fast Casual in fall of 2016. I invite you to come back on any of my shows anytime. It's really just been lovely to spend time with you.
Yeah, give a call. Love it.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, you bet.